It's been a long 7 years since the end of the original Daredevil show on Netflix back in 2018, but now finally last night, Daredevil is officially back with the 2 episode premiere of Born Again. I'm going to be going over all my favorite and least favorite parts of the first 2 episodes with major spoilers in here, so if you haven't seen the first 2 episodes or don't want to know what happens, click off this video now. And we got to start off with the very obvious point that has everybody talking. This has been incredibly controversial. Again, last chance to get away from this video if you don't want to have it spoiled, but obviously I'm referring to the death of Foggy Nelson that happens literally less than 10 minutes into episode 1. I'm very mixed on this decision to kill him off. Honestly, it seems like the cast agrees. Like Charlie Cox, who plays Daredevil, obviously in multiple interviews has gone on to say that, yeah, we needed to make a big splash and we want to rock the boat and draw people in a new way. Killing Foggy is one way to do it, but it's a big choice. In another interview clip I saw, he literally said like he's not sure if it was the right decision still. And honestly, I kind of agree with him. I don't think the decision to kill Foggy is a straight up bad decision on its own. I always say shows like this need to have higher stakes. We need to actually take risks killing off main characters if it needs to be happening in a lot more Disney properties. Like the MCU never kills people off. So I don't think it's a mistake to kill Foggy off. I think they just did it in a wrong way. I simply think they killed him off too early in the episode. I think if they waited off until the end of episode 1 or like the middle of episode 2, give us a little bit more time to jump back into this world with Matt, Foggy, and Karen, seeing them just live their daily lives a little bit more, it would have hit 10 times harder. Now, obviously, it still does kind of hit hard because we had 3 seasons with these characters, but again, you're coming back after a 7-year break. A lot of people are probably jumping into this without even seeing the original Daredevil show, and I know that's not the problem of the show creators, but still, I felt like it would just happen so soon and it was so sudden that it almost didn't have the heavy impact that the moment was obviously supposed to have. Like I said, I'm very mixed on the scene itself. I do think Foggy's actual death and him dying is a very emotional moment in itself. Daredevil absolutely losing it on Poindexter right afterwards, and this whole fight, again, all expertly handled. I just think it literally happened way too soon in the episode to actually have the impact it needed. It also feels like they wrote the rest of episode 1 and 2 without this event happening, because yeah, the show was originally planning to go forward without even bringing Karen or Foggy back, and then they decided, hey, we need to bring them back, so we're just going to kill Foggy off in episode 1 and just go with the rest of the season that we already had already. And Foggy's death also gave us just an excuse to pretty much write off Karen for what seems like the most of the rest of season 1. She's probably not going to be back in. We know from the actress confirming she will be in season 2, but it feels so obvious that they kept pretty much the original plan of not having Foggy or Karen in this at all, and they're like, oh my god, people aren't going to like that, so we'll bring them back in season 2, but we're still going to go with our original plan for season 1. Now, there is a very famous Foggy storyline in the comics where he quote-unquote dies but comes back to life. I feel like there is a decent chance that they do end up doing this, and honestly, I'd be pretty mixed on that too. Brings me to a first negative of the season. I promise I'm going to get to stuff I liked in this episode, because I did ultimately really like these 2 episodes. There's just some major problems in it. It's all the new characters in this show. I'm sorry, the supporting cast was so strong and such an integral part of the first original Daredevil show, and all these new characters just feel like the cheapest replacements of Karen and Foggy, except less interesting. Like, we got Daniel Blake, who I'm hoping becomes a better character, but as of right now in these first 2 episodes, him just kind of serving as a supporter of Kingpin's mayoral campaign is honestly not doing anything for me. Again, only 2 episodes. I'm sure they're going to do more with this character in the future. And we got Heather on the right, who is Daredevil's new love interest as of right now. Again, I really don't care for this. I'd rather just have Daredevil and Karen. Speaking of Mr. Wilson Fisk and his mayoral campaign, this is something that does feel a little bit off for me, because obviously at the end of Daredevil season 3, he was in prison, and then we just see him kind of out in Hawkeye and Echo, and then he's just here again running for mayor with like no prior problems, and he's just like, everybody forgot about that. How we got out of prison, we don't really know, and we're not interested with telling that apparently. And I'm sure we're going for like a Trump kind of comparison here of being like, oh look, he's a convicted criminal and he still got elected for mayor. That's fine and all, but for the sake of being a TV show that is claiming it's continuing Daredevil season 3, I feel like we needed to connect the dots a little bit more of how we got from the end of season 3 in prison to now here. Like, it feels like a weird middle ground between kind of being a continuation but also a soft reboot, because like I said, we kind of are introducing a brand new supporting cast. We're writing off Karen for the first season. It seems like killing off Foggy within 10 minutes Kingpin kind of feels like a new character from where he ended in season 3. And this point's kind of nitpicky, but while I'm talking about Fisk, I might as well bring it up because it was just kind of goofy and made me laugh. It's the moment where Fisk gets out of the car and just tells the construction workers, hey, fill in this hole. I'm not waiting in line in traffic for this to go around. You're gonna fix it right here and now. The fact that everybody's like, oh no, don't do this, Mr. Fisk, on his team. He does it, and then everybody's like standing up and cheering around him, being like, oh my god, you're our hero. We love you, Mayor Fisk. It honestly just felt so silly for me, but I guess it's just showing that people idolize him for doing anything. I know that's been a lot of negativity. Like I said, I did overall like these first couple episodes, so I want to get into some of the actual positives. First of all, I do think the show actually looks pretty good visually. I think it's getting a lot of unfair hate for this element online. I do think it's a little bit of a downgrade in the stylistic choices of the first season of Daredevil, because that show looked beautiful. Like, people are nitpicking and pausing at one random frame in the middle of a fight scene and being like, look at how garbage this looks. Like, if you actually just sit there and watch the show in one fluid motion without pausing it and looking for every issue with like the green screen and stuff, I think it looked actually pretty good. Like, a lot of the cinematography and camera work, especially early on in the first episode, is really good. Like I said, the original fight between Daredevil and Bullseye, I think that kind of looks really cool, of them on the staircase and everything. Obviously, this shot of Daredevil's mask is falling. Like, this is honestly just so cool. I also think they're doing an amazing job with the action sequences in this show. I've already talked about the opening one versus Bullseye. This other one that happens at the end of episode 2 with Matt in the apartment, also just A+, literally feel to rip straight out of the original Netflix series. And honestly, some of the fight scenes might honestly be better than the stuff in there. Like, go watch the scene of Daredevil punching Fisk at the end of season 3. It is the fakest punches ever, but people have revisionist history and act like that show was just perfect just because it had very good moments. I'd have to think about it a little bit harder, but honestly, this fight at the end of episode 2 might be in like my top 10 favorite MCU fights, because honestly, we don't get a lot of great fight scenes and choreography in the MCU. This was just so badass. One thing that's not really bad, because they still could do it in this season, so I'm gonna throw it in the mixed category, is the lack of just Father Lantom or him going into church at all. Those scenes in season 1 through 3 of Daredevil was so peak and critical to the character, and so far it doesn't seem like they're planning on giving us any more of those, which is kind of a shame. I do think these first 2 episodes did a really good job at making Hell's Kitchen feel very alive. The criminal threat is just very active and kind of looming over us, and it set up a lot of interesting things that, again, this is only the first 2 episodes. Even though I didn't absolutely love these, there are things that I think could really pay off. Everything with the White Tiger, we know Muse is coming. Obviously, everything with the absolute menace that is Poindexter is always going to be interesting, because this dude is just a complete wild card every time he's on screen. If I had to break down a score for each of the first 2 episodes, I think I'd settle on an 8 out of 10 for episode 1 and probably a 7 out of 10 for episode 2, because I really think episode 2, outside of the very ending with Matt, was pretty weak overall. Like I said, I'm just not buying into the whole Kingpin mayor campaign thing. I do just enjoy being back in this world with Matt and Fisk. I wish we had more Foggy and Karen, obviously, and they're not perfect episodes, but a lot of season 1 and 2 of Daredevil have lots of like moments just like this, of episodes that are just kind of perfectly good and enjoyable, like 7 to 8 out of 10s. Not every episode from the original series was a masterpiece, so I definitely think the show has the potential, by the time we get to episode 9, the end of season 1, to legitimately reach some of the peaks of the original Daredevil show. We just gotta let them kind of set their footing, get a lot of plot lines and villains in order for all the big payoff to come later in the show. Let me know in the comments what you thought of these first 2 episodes, your favorite and least favorite parts, and make sure to tap the playlist above my head for all my Marvel videos on the channel, covering Avengers Doomsday leaks, ranking the MCU, and so much more.